Welcome to Beyond the Quarterly, the show where we crack open business publications and pull out the good stuff.
We dig through all that dense text so you don't have to.
Yeah. Before we start, real quick, we need to say we're not affiliated with McKinsey.
At all.
In any way.
Nope, just taking a deep dive into their quarterly magazine.
See what's up in the world of business?
We're like your impartial tour guides.
Exactly.
Pointing out the good stuff.
And speaking of good stuff, today we've got the McKinsey Quarterly's 60th anniversary issue.
Wow.
Issue 1 of 2025, all about the future of leadership.
6 decades. That's crazy. This publication's been around forever.
It has, and it always keeps up with how leadership is changing.
This issue is right on the money, you know? Leading in a world that's always changing. It's wild out there.
Yeah, so how can leaders not just survive, but really thrive?
That's the big question.
It is, and they actually list 6 leadership traits that are like essential for the 21st century.
Okay, hit with them.
All right, so positive energy, personal balance, and inspiration. Deep intellectual curiosity, courage, and resilience.
Makes sense.
Empathy and vulnerability.
Interesting.
A bias for action.
Okay.
And integrity and authenticity.
Wow, it's a pretty powerful list when you think about it. It's all about like moving toward more human-centered leadership.
Okay, so let's break that down.
Yeah.
What does that actually look like?
Okay, well, think about it.
Yeah.
Self-awareness, being compassionate, creating a space where your team feels safe psychologically.
Right.
Those are important now more than ever.
Yeah, it's like they're saying leaders need to find a balance.
Definitely.
You need the traditional business skills.
Of course.
But also, like, understand people.
Oh, for sure.
And how to motivate them.
Yeah. Inspire them.
Right.
The authors even talk about a growth mindset.
Oh, interesting.
Always being open to learning, you know?
Always more to discover.
Totally.
They talk a lot about resilient and adaptable teams, too. They actually have 4 things companies can do to build that.
Okay, what are they?
First, build a psychologically safe community.
So, like, people feel okay taking risks.
Exactly.
Sharing ideas.
Without being judged.
Yeah, that's huge.
Super important for innovation.
Totally.
Second, they say to encourage an experimental mindset.
So be willing to try new things.
Fail and learn.
Give and then try again, right?
Exactly. It's all about learning.
Okay, makes sense. What's number 3?
The third one is about giving employees the skills they need to be resilient and adaptable.
Got it.
So training programs, coaching,
Yeah.
or even letting them work on different teams.
Cross-functional stuff.
Right.
I like it. It's all about like investing in your people.
It is. And finally, number 4, they say leaders have to embody these qualities too.
Lead by example, right?
Exactly. Show them what you want to see.
Okay, that makes sense.
Now, let's switch gears a bit.
Okay.
Talk about what McKinsey calls superpowers.
Superpowers, like in companies.
Yeah. The things that set companies apart.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
What makes them so special?
Well, think about it. Every successful company has something that really makes them stand out.
Good.
Could be amazing technology.
Right.
Or incredible customer service.
Yeah.
Or even just like a really unique culture.
Their secret sauce.
Exactly. And a lot of times these superpowers come from strong leadership.
So how can companies find their own superpowers? Is there like a roadmap?
McKinsey actually has this thing they call Vector.
Vector.
It stands for vision, employees, culture, technology, organizational structure, and routines.
Okay, break it down for me.
All right, so vision is all about having that big long-term goal.
Like a guiding principle?
Yeah, think about Amazon. Their mission is to be Earth's most customer-centric company.
Wow, that's powerful.
It is. It keeps them focused.
Like a North Star.
Exactly. Then you have employees, hiring and keeping great people. That's crucial.
We need people who are skilled and passionate.
Absolutely. They need to fit the culture.
Be excited about the company's goals.
Totally. And then there's culture.
Okay.
It's all about creating a space where people can innovate,
Take risks.
challenge the status quo.
Feel valued.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's more than just perks. It's about belonging and purpose.
Makes sense.
And of course, we can't forget about technology.
It's everywhere now.
It's the backbone of so many businesses.
Yeah, and it helps companies build those superpowers.
Take ASML, for example. They dominate the market for chip-making equipment.
How do they get so big?
Well, they made some really smart moves. They invested a ton in R&D.
So they're always on the cutting edge.
Exactly. And they weren't afraid to acquire other companies, you know, bring in expertise.
It's like a combination of growth from within and smart partnerships.
Yeah. But it's not just about having the tech. It's about how you use it.
Right.
That's where organizational structure comes in.
It has to support the superpower.
Think about Amazon again.
Okay.
They have a decentralized structure, small teams focused on customer needs.
So they can be agile.
Exactly, like a network of mini entrepreneurs.
I like that.
And then you have LVMH.
The luxury goods company.
Right, they have a more federated structure.
Each brand has its own identity.
But they still benefit from being part of a larger group.
So different structures for different superpowers?
Exactly, there's no one-size-fits-all.
And finally, routines.
Ah, yes.
Embedding the
Flex.
superpower into everyday work.
Creating systems and processes.
Making it part of the company's DNA.
Exactly. Think about Amazon again.
Okay.
Their processes are super standardized, from warehousing to customer service.
Keeps things consistent.
And reliable.
So it all works together to support the superpower.
It all comes back to that.
Now, I want to shift gears for a minute.
Sure.
Talk about something that's unfortunately still a big problem in business. The gender gap in leadership.
It's disheartening, isn't it?
It is, even with all the progress.
McKinsey points out that women, especially women of color, still face a ton of hurdles.
They even have a term for it, the broken rung.
Oh, right, that point where women get stuck.
Trying to get into management roles?
It's like an invisible barrier. So frustrating. So what can companies do to fix this?
Well, McKinsey has a whole checklist of things they can try.
Okay, like what?
Things like parental leave, childcare, flexible work arrangements,
Those are important.
but also things like mental health support, bias training, and sponsorship programs.
Interesting. What's sponsorship?
It's like mentorship, but more active.
Okay.
Instead of just giving advice, a sponsor actually advocates for someone's advancement. It's like having a powerful ally.
Someone opening doors for you.
Exactly. And it can make a huge difference for women, especially women of color.
Makes sense.
And McKinsey says it's not enough to just talk about diversity. Leaders need to be held accountable,
They need to take action.
track their progress.
Make it part of the company culture.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the big theme of this issue.
The future of leadership.
It's not just about business skills anymore.
It's about being more human-centered.
Valuing diversity.
Equity, inclusion.
Recognizing that everyone has something unique to offer.
Creating a sense of belonging.
Exactly. And this issue shows that these qualities aren't just nice to have.
They're essential for success.
Leaders who embrace these things are the ones who will make a real impact.
On their companies, on society.
That's a powerful message.
It is.
And that's it for part 1 of our deep dive into the McKinsey Quarterly 60th anniversary issue.
Wow, we covered a lot.
We did, from the changing nature of leadership to those superpowers.
And the importance of diversity and inclusion.
We hope you got some valuable insights from this.
Whether you're leading a huge company or a small team,
Remember, the future of leadership is in our hands.
we get to shape it.
So go out there and be the leader the world needs.
Be the change.
Thanks for joining us on Beyond the Quarterly.
We'll see you next time. Welcome back to Beyond the Quarterly.
We're jumping right back into leadership, looking at the more personal side of it.
Okay.
This issue had some really cool insights from actual CEOs.
Oh, nice.
It's so interesting to hear their perspective.
It definitely makes it feel more real, less theoretical.
Totally. One article that really stuck with me was about how important self-discovery is for CEOs.
Oh, right. The one where they say a lot of CEOs still have a lot to learn about themselves, even after they get the top job.
Yeah. It's like this ongoing journey.
A journey of self-reflection.
Exactly. And they say it's crucial for being a good leader.
Makes sense. You got to know yourself before you can lead others.
It's like you can't pour from an empty cup, right?
I like that analogy.
You gotta fill yourself up first.
Totally. And the article actually gives CEOs this checklist of questions they should be able to answer.
Oh, yeah. What were some of those?
Well, the first one was, where are we going and what makes us distinctive?
That's a big one, having a clear vision.
Right. But they say it's got to be more than just financial goals.
It needs to inspire people, get them excited to come to work.
It's got to be a rallying cry,
Totally. And then there's the question of strategy.
Have we created a short list of clearly defined big moves at the enterprise level that will distance us from our competitors?
Making those bold choices.
They use the example of Satya Nadella at Microsoft.
Oh, yeah, when he took over.
His big moves were like doubling down on the cloud, switching to subscriptions, and creating a growth mindset.
It's amazing how those decisions changed the whole company.
It really is, but having a strategy isn't enough.
You got to be able to execute.
Right. So the next question is, are we organized to win?
Having the right structure, the right people, the right processes.
They talk about Brad Smith at Intuit.
Okay.
He talks about finding a balance between stability and agility.
It's like a dance.
They call it stagility.
Interesting.
Having a strong foundation, but also being able to adapt.
That makes sense.
And of course, we got to talk about talent.
Are the most value-creating roles in our organization filled with the right talent? And do they have a strong leadership pipeline?
It's all about your people.
Making sure you have the right people in the right roles.
They have this really interesting point. They say that in most companies, only about 10% of the 50 most important roles report directly to the CEO.
So it's not just about your immediate team.
You got to think bigger.
Identify those key roles throughout the organization.
Like Steven Schwartzman at Blackstone.
What did he do?
He and his team figured out the 37 positions that were responsible for 80% of a company's value.
Wow, that's lasers focus.
It is. And then they talk about teamwork, having a good operating rhythm, building relationships with the board of directors.
It's a good reminder that leadership is about a lot of different things.
It's not just about being brilliant. It's about building teams, creating structures, nurturing relationships.
It's like a puzzle, putting all the pieces together.
I like that.
Now, I want to switch gears a bit and talk about something that's not always talked about when it comes to leadership.
What's that?
Vulnerability.
Oh, interesting.
It seems counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
We think of leaders as strong and decisive.
They're supposed to have all the answers.
But this issue actually talks about how powerful vulnerability can be.
Really?
There's an article called How Leaders Can Tap the Power of Vulnerability. It's from a book called The Journey of Leadership.
Gotcha.
They say vulnerability isn't a weakness, it's a strength.
It's about being real, admitting when you don't know something.
Asking for help.
And they give some examples of how vulnerability can make you a better leader.
Like what?
Well, one story was about a CEO who was dealing with a family member creating a toxic work environment.
Oh, wow. Family businesses can be tough.
Yeah, and the CEO realized that by opening up about his struggles and asking for advice, he actually built trust with his team.
And was able to solve the problem.
Exactly. It shows you don't have to have all the answers.
Sometimes it's better to admit you don't know.
Totally. And they talk about the connection between vulnerability and psychological safety.
When leaders are vulnerable, it makes others feel safe to be vulnerable too.
It creates a more open environment.
Encourages collaboration.
Leads to innovation.
It's a positive cycle.
They even give tips for being more vulnerable.
Like what?
Asking for feedback, admitting mistakes, being open to different perspectives.
It's about shifting your mindset.
From I have to be perfect to I'm always learning.
Exactly. Now let's go back to those superpowers we talked about earlier.
Okay.
This time, we're going to look at what McKinsey calls the Magnificent Seven.
The Magnificent Seven. Who are they?
They're a group of companies that have consistently outperformed everyone else.
Like Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, those guys.
Exactly. And McKinsey says a big part of their success is their superpowers.
It's not just luck, it's about making deliberate choices.
Building those differentiating capabilities.
And they use the vector approach to explain how to do that.
Vision, employees, culture, technology, organizational structure, routines.
We talked about vision earlier, but how do these Magnificent Seven companies approach it?
They think long-term. They paint a picture of the future.
Like Amazon wanting to be Earth's most customer-centric company.
Right. It's a vision that really resonates.
And then there are the employees.
It's not just about hiring smart people.
You got to create a culture where they can thrive.
The Magnificent Seven focus on building what McKinsey calls technical and execution skills.
Making sure their people have the skills they need for the future.
Like digital literacy, data analysis, problem solving.
Exactly. And of course, technology is a big part of building superpowers.
It's essential for so many businesses these days.
McKinsey talks about ASML again.
The chip-making company.
They say their technological leadership is why they're so dominant.
We talked about their acquisitions and their R&D, but what about their culture?
They've created a culture of innovation and collaboration.
Where people are constantly pushing the boundaries.
It's not just about the technology itself, it's about the people who are developing it.
So the human element is still crucial.
Absolutely. And then there's organizational structure.
Finding the right structure to support your superpower.
Amazon's decentralized structure is a good example.
So is LVMH's federated approach?
Different structures for different needs.
And finally, routines.
Embedding the superpower into everything you do.
Creating systems and processes that reinforce it.
Like Amazon's standardized processes.
Keeping everything consistent and efficient.
McKinsey makes a good point. They say building a superpower takes time.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
It requires commitment, long-term investment.
But the payoff is huge.
Companies that build superpowers can achieve amazing things.
Things their competitors can only dream of.
It's about creating a lasting advantage, something that will drive success for years to come.
So we've talked about vision, about being adaptable, even about how vulnerability can be a strength for leaders. But this McKinsey Quarterly issue really highlights one more piece of the leadership puzzle.
I think I know where you're going with this.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah, it's getting more attention these days, which is great.
It is, and this issue doesn't just talk about it in a general sense.
Right.
It gives real data, practical strategies.
For leaders who want to build inclusive workplaces,
Exactly.
they talk about the broken rung on the corporate ladder again.
Yeah, we touched on that earlier.
It's a big problem. Women, especially women of color, hitting this barrier.
When they're trying to get into management?
Yeah, it's like a wall they can't get past.
So how do we fix this?
McKinsey has a checklist
Of things companies can do.
things like making sure hiring and promotions are fair, bias training,
Right.
and creating a culture of sponsorship.
Sponsorship, that's interesting.
It's different from mentorship.
Okay, so
A mentor gives advice, guidance, support.
like a wise friend,
Exactly. But a sponsor, they advocate for you.
they go to bat for you.
They open doors, create opportunities.
It's like having a powerful ally.
Someone who's really in your corner,
And McKinsey says that can be huge for women
especially women of color.
because they haven't always had access to those networks.
Those informal networks of power.
So it's not just about leveling the playing field,
It's about actively lifting people up.
who have been left out in the past.
And McKinsey says leaders need to be held accountable for this.
It's not enough to just talk about it.
You got to take action.
Measure your progress.
Make DEI part of the company's DNA.
And that brings us back to the big idea of this whole issue.
The future of leadership.
It's not just about being a business whiz anymore.
It's about being more human,
More empathetic,
valuing diversity,
creating a sense of belonging.
making sure everyone feels valued.
And this issue shows us that these things aren't just extras.
Right.
They're crucial for success.
Leaders who get this, who embrace diversity and inclusion, they're the ones who are going to make a real difference.
Not just for their companies.
But for the world.
What an inspiring message.
It is.
And that's it for our deep dive into the McKinsey Quarterly's 60th anniversary issue.
Wow, what a journey.
We covered a lot of ground.
From the changing nature of leadership
To those superpowers.
and the importance of creating a truly inclusive workplace.
We hope you got some great insights.
Some food for thought,
No matter what kind of leader you are,
or want to be.
the future of leadership is something we create together.
It's up to all of us.
So let's go out there and be the leaders the world needs.
Make it happen.
Thanks for joining us on Beyond the Quarterly.
We'll see you next time.